저희들 그 오늘 팜플렛 안 갖고 계시는데 팜플렛 뒤쪽에 맨 마지막에 보시게 되면 국경 없는 인권 협회에 우리 윌리 포트레 선생님께서 보내신 서명이 여기 있습니다. 서명이 여기 있어서 이 부분 이런 부분들이 있는데 이것이 바로 이 난민을 신청하시는 분들한테는 굉장히 소중한 서신이 되는 거예요. 그래서 앞으로 국제적으로 많이 활동하고 계시기 때문에 이런 서신들이나 아니면은 여러분들과 같은 그런 귀한 활동을 하시는 인권 운동가나 종교 관계자분들이 연대 서명들을 통해서 이런 분들을 좀 도와주십사 하는 그런 부탁의 말씀이셨습니다. 그래서 앞으로 이를 계기로 해서 더 많이 우리 전능하신 하나님 교회 지금 소환장을 받았던 강제 추방 명령서를 받았던 분들은 이 자리가 얼마나 가슴 아프겠습니까? 그런 차원에서 많은 도움 주셨으면 하고 그 각오의 말씀들을 여러분들을 위해서 내가 뛰겠다라고 하는 각오의 말씀들 그리고 또 이분들을 위한 격려의 말씀 한마디 좀 주시면 좋겠습니다. 자, 여러분 박수로 한번 다시 보시겠습니다.
Well, thank you for a very informative conference. We will all very moved by the testimonies of those persecuted in China. And they do not get political refugee status in Korea, but they have similar problems in European countries, including my own country, Italy, and Germany. So summing up this conference, I want to ask why, confronted with such obvious and blatant case of religious persecution and even torture, refugee status is not recognized by civilized countries such as Germany or Italy or South Korea. Unlike Rosita Sciorite, I'm not a diplomat or expert in international organization. I'm a sociologist. And as a social scientist, I believe there are three reasons for this. None of these three reasons alone is enough, but combined, they create the problem. The first one, as Ms. Sciorite explained, is that in the world there are too many people claiming to be refugees, and the public opinion is scared. We cannot welcome millions of refugees. That's surely the case in Europe and in Italy. And governments are scared. What will be the social consequences of allowing millions of refugees? And some of them are false refugees. They escape from poverty, that's a different problem, but they do not correspond to the definition of refugee in the international convention. So the first reason is refugees in general are not necessarily popular. The second reason is China. China is a very powerful country. It's the first or the second most powerful economy in the world. All countries, including Italy, have very important economic ties with China. We need to sell our products in China. China is the owner of part of our national debts, much more in the United States, but they have this position in Italy too. And so it's very clear that many governments and private organizations do not want to come into a conflict with China. And the third reason is specific to the Church of Almighty God. I'm very upset when I see that certain organizations will not deal with the refugee crisis of the Church of Almighty God. I believe it's very much wrong. But then I try to understand the reason, and they go to Wikipedia or other sources, including BBC or CNN, and they will read that Church of Almighty God kills young ladies in McDonald's, or kidnaps pastors, or take the eyes out of the sockets, or stabbed old ladies with knives, and every week there is something new. So it is clear that CCP was very successful in working with international encyclopedia, international media, and even to some extent academics, certainly journalists, to convey a very negative image of the Church of Almighty God. So somebody in these countries, Italy, Germany, Korea, say, yeah, perhaps they are persecuted, but they are also bad people. We don't want to deal with them. So if there are these three problems, what can we do? Because I always believe conferences should be constructive. Otherwise, we say a lot of nice words, but we waste our time, which is often the case in academic conferences. So what can be done? I believe it's very useful to multiply these international conferences all over the world in other countries, and also to include in academic conferences this kind of distinction: who is the real refugee? Because even academics, they don't know. There is a lot of confusion. I don't read Korean. I don't know about Korean media. But if I read Italian media, there is a lot of confusion: immigrant, refugee, asylum seeker, and the public opinion makes no clear distinction about the guy who comes from Central Africa, because he is very poor. So we can have sympathy for him. He has no work in Central Africa, but we cannot welcome all of Africa into Europe, of course. So this person, if he returns to Central Africa, he has no work. That's bad. But your case is different. If you return to China, you will be imprisoned or tortured or killed. That's different. Now, believe me, this difference is not clear. It's not clear to public opinion, journalists, sometimes even academics. So this kind of speech, who is the refugee, is very important to disseminate in all possible venues. China, I know China is very powerful, but I went to China twice this year, and my question is, why exactly did they invite me and other people who are very well known for being defenders of religious liberty, even of groups labeled as cults? We don't believe in cults or discrimination against cults. So why did CCP invite me? And the only serious answer is because China, to some extent, cares about their international image. So they want to show that they have a dialogue with international scholars. It's probably not true, but they want to show that they take into account the opinions of international scholars. So China does have a concern for international public opinion. So it's a very delicate balance. Some groups may exaggerate in their campaigns against China and they may backfire or be counterproductive, but it's very important to prepare documents. You don't need to put the real names and surname if you are afraid of retaliation against the families in China, but documents with clearly indicating what's going on, when, in which year, in which day, in which city, what exactly happened, and to prepare clear documents to be shown to governments, to courts, to international human rights organizations explaining what's going on. You need to do a lot of homework, but for you it's a question of life and death to prepare clear statements and tell to the world the true story. And third, there is a huge problem in this world of fake news. You saw fake news may have determined the results of the elections in very big countries. And we know there are governments employing hundreds of people in disseminating fake news. So fighting fake news is very important. It's perhaps not so much important that people clearly understand your theology. Your theology may be very complicated, but it's very important that you convey the message. We have a different theology from, say, Catholics. That's very much clear. But we don't kill people in the McDonald's. We don't take the eyes out of the eyeballs. We don't cut the ear of people. These are fake news or news which cannot be proved. This is very important. So I believe you have a good point in your church that unlike other organizations, you are very open to scholars. We as scholars have visited your churches, not in China, they are secret, of course, but we have visited your churches in different countries, Italy, South Korea, United States, and you are very open. You answer the questions of the scholars, so it's very important that you work with a number of scholars, and from scholars try to go to journalists, to media, to international organizations, to give a positive image of your church without perhaps elaborating too much on theology. The media don't care about theology, but also to fight the fake news, because fake news are a huge problem. I would say today, if you look at the media, it's one of the main problems, and you are the typical victim of black propaganda and fake news. So fighting the fake news one by one is very important. So I would not tell you the truth if I would say that your situation is easy. It's not easy because there is a global uneasiness about refugees, because too many people apply for refugee status in the world. Some of them are false, not your case, but some of them are false refugees. And because China is a very powerful organization. even scholars, you know, sometimes some groups are criticizing as cults with fake news, but these fake news are fabricated by, say, other Christian churches. They are more easy to fight, but in this case, fake news are fabricated by a huge system. So they may be much more difficult to fight. So your situation is not easy, but you have rights, as Ms. Sharita said. Your rights should be protected. And so I would urge all bona fide human rights defenders, all responsible media, and all new religious movements and humanitarian law experts and scholars to work to tell the truth. Your story is one of the most moving stories today in the world. It's one of the, in a way, it's one of the big scandals. People who clearly deserve the status of refugees are not acknowledged as real refugees. It's a big scandal, which involves democratic, highly respected countries, such as my country, your country, Korea. And so truth should be told. It will not be easy, but I believe that if we all work together, we may come from different backgrounds, we may believe in different religions, we may have different political ideas, but here it's not about politics, it's not about religion, it's about torture and blood and human beings. And so we should all work together. Thank you.
My advice is not to concentrate your defense on fighting against China or CCP. The message should be for defending your rights. Because you cannot find a big country, they will always find, we have, because the fact that perhaps was not very much underlined, but for three last years I worked at the United Nations in New York. So, and every single time when, for instance, European countries, even US, they like very much, even though they not necessarily always do the good job around the world, but they were always including the human rights in many different, because it's always, it goes this, whatever issue you touch between states, it's always human rights is the part of the everything. And all the time, two countries in particular, so they're always opposing it, and it's a constant battle that, like, European countries and US is introducing the issue of human rights, and Russia with China, they are fighting to take it away. So it's a permanent, it's like always spend our time, I say Massimo was saying about that very often scholar conferences are not very productive and it's a lot about talking. And I was smiling inside of me by saying, and diplomatic, meaning the conferences between states is very often just about talking. Let's talk. It's beautiful. Take a nice issue and just discuss and do nothing. While in reality, people are suffering and then we have wars and we have many problems. So states also, because, and most of the time where states, they lose a lot of energy is fighting, it will be mentioned, the human rights, or it will not be mentioned. And China is one of those major forces who always would fight till the last minute to eliminate even the mentioning of human rights. So it's known, it's not new, and the battle, it's very difficult. And even in a way, it's a little bit understandable that South Korea is in a very delicate situation, political situation, because of the situation, actual situation in North Korea. So, of course, we need China to cooperate and etc. because in the political settlement of the problems, China is a big player. So you might be partly paying the price of that. But at the same time, as I say, is the message should be concentrated not against China, but the message should be concentrated on protecting your rights. And already, it's a fantastic that your case is known by the Human Rights Without Frontiers. That is, it's a very good that in Europe already knows your case. That is a problem. This acknowledgement is extremely important. So, and you should continue, let world know your problem. And I'm not entirely agreeing with Massimo that refugees are in a bad situation right now. It's not, because what is really problem is what to do with the migrants, economical migrants who overflow Europe. Usually, when it's really the case with refugee, normally even people, they are not against the refugees, because they know that refugees usually people who escape the torture and persecution. It's not they don't leave the country because they want to live in better economical situation, because migrants usually it's economical reasons. But refugees, those are people who are really escaping something, and this something we have to help them. They are many, they are not many, it's not even the question. And very often, of course, you have the bad guys who are overusing, making propaganda, and etc. It exists, but somehow people define the right way to understand what is refugee and what is not refugee. What is difficult, as I mentioned, for instance, like if you take that the fact is that Eritrea, because government takes the boys for the military service for life, it's quite recruiting. It's like they cannot escape it, and quite few European countries they give the refugee status almost automatically to Eritrean boys. So the situation is that black African coming from all over Africa, they lose the document, and they say I'm Eritrean. So it takes time to really to go to the bottom of the situation if really the boy is from Eritrea. Because if the boy is from Eritrea, he will be granted the refugee status. But he is from Mali or he is from Senegal, that's another situation. So meaning that there are a lot of abusers. So that's why the processes sometimes they are slow. But I believe that, I don't know how specifically of your brothers and sisters in Italy, for instance, that I just don't know. I don't have the facts. So most probably that when they really go to bottom of it, and they will be granted. But now the question is that you are in South Korea and you cannot be deported from Korea. It will be a criminal act from the part of Korea to deport somebody who risks his life be deported. So that is the bottom line, and that's what the red line is, and that is the red line that you should defend. Thank you.
고맙습니다. 정말 그래도 시간이 쭉 가버렸네요. 오늘 여러 가지 중요한 이야기들이 많이 나왔는데 가장 중요한 것은 우리가 아까 그 로시타 소리티 여사님께서 말씀하신 내용입니다. 진실된 난민은 반드시 난민의 지위를 받아야 되고 어떤 원칙이라도 마찬가지라는 사실. 그래서 진실된 난민인 여러분들은 반드시 이 대한민국에서 추방당하지 않고 난민의 지위를 받을 수 있다라는 확신을 가지자라고 하는 것이 오늘의 메시지가 아닐까 생각을 하고요. 더더욱 중요한 것은 여러분들은 각오가 돼 있지 않습니까? 쫓겨나지 않을 각오, 난민 지위를 반드시 받을 각오, 그리고 그것이 안 될 때는 그래도 신앙을 위해서 목숨까지 걸 각오. 그렇지만 여러분들이 더 바라는 것은 여기 있는 모든 전문가들, 저희들도 있고 우리 한국에 계시는 이분들도 다 계십니다만 외국에서 오신 우리 마시모 박사님 그리고 로시타 여사님, 여러분들과 같은 그런 귀한 외교관, 국제 관계자분들이 이 난민분들을 위해서 더 열심히 노력해 주십사. 그리고 또 스스로도 이런 난민들을 외면하지 않겠다라고 하는 그런 각오를 이 세미나에서 다지고 간다면 그것이 이들에게 가장 큰 힘이 될 것이다. 저는 그렇게 생각을 하고 그런 각오를 좀 가져주십사는 말씀을 감히 드립니다. 모쪼록 8월 달에 이어서 10월 달에 이루어진 행사입니다만 좀 부족하고 또 언론이라고 하는 큰 장벽이 있습니다. 대한민국은 여러분들이 아시다시피 특히 중국은 지금 여러 가지 측면에서 여러분들이 활동하시는 모든 부분들을 차단하기 위해서 그 영향력이 확산되지 않기 위해서 갖은 노력을 다 하고 있고요. 그 과정에서 여기 있는 전하, 옆에 있는 우리 남광규 박사님, 김대산 우리 사장님 모두 마찬가지로 그게 결코 자유로울 수 없지만 그것이 정의가 아니기 때문에 그거는 부정이기 때문에 저희들은 싸울 각오가 되어 있습니다. 그러나 그 난관은 넘어야 됩니다. 그 난관에 딱 부닥쳐 있는 것이 지금 대한민국의 현실이고 지금 이 정부도 저희들에게는 우호적이지 않습니다. 좀 더 두고 봐야 되겠지만은요. 함께 싸워 나가야 될 일들이 많습니다. 여러분 힘내시고 기운 잃지 말고 그리고 진실은 반드시 승리하기 때문에 그 진실을 위해서 같이 싸워 나가는 것을 결심하는 오늘 세미나였으면 합니다. 여러분 긴 시간 동안 고생하셨고 또 인권의 투쟁의 현상에서 또 신앙의 현장에서 여러분 뵙겠습니다. 감사합니다.
이상으로 오늘 종교박해 난민의 인권 세미나를 모두 마치겠습니다. 평일임에도 불구하고 끝까지 함께해 주신 모든 분들께 감사드립니다. 안녕히 돌아가십시오. 감사합니다.
고맙습니다. 박사.